The Iowa Hawkeye women with a much-needed victory on the road. The women have not played a ton of games away from Carver, at least specifically in true road games. They've played some neutral site games and had some success, specifically down in Cancun, and of course a close loss against Tennessee in a neutral and a win up in Sioux Falls against Kansas. But the Hawkeyes earning one in State College on the first day of 2025. We'll talk about the implications and what we learned from Iowa's win over Penn State here in just one moment. But first, as always, we want to thank our sponsor, Iowa Floor Covering. Check out their Tough Core Click Together 4.5 millimeter waterproof vinyl flooring. You can check it all out at iowafloorcovering.com. That's iowafloorcovering.com. You can also give Tyler a call down at 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. 7,000. Also want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. Brad has been sponsoring coverage here from the Hawkeye of the Storm throughout men's and women's basketball season. We thank Brad, as always. Visit him in person down at 4229 Fluor Drive in Des Moines. Brad Van Meter and his team at State Farm. So the Hawkeye women defeating Penn State on the first day of 2025. Behind a solid performance from veteran Hannah Stuelke and some timely threes from Taylor McCabe. Yet another night where we saw Lucy Olsen struggle from the field. That's two straight Big Ten contests now where Lucy has not been herself. And it is fair to say these have been against two of the worst teams in the conference. You may kind of be a cynic when you hear me say that because neither of these games, the Purdue win nor this game against Penn State, neither of these performances have been Iowa passing it with flying colors. Both of these games had their ups and downs. This is a game where Iowa fell down early against the Nittany Lions today. And hey, they struggled to stop Penn State offensively, which is amazing that we're even saying that. In fact, you look at the scoring throughout the game, they gave up 24 points in the first quarter. Hawkeyes ended up giving up just 25 in the second and fourth quarters combined. So certainly defense got better as the game went on. Jan Jensen was clearly not happy. And there was always the old adage, like playing at Indiana in football. Now that's a different story now with Curt Cignetti in Bloomington. But, you know, kind of that storyline when you go to Bloomington to play at Indiana, it's always kind of been deemed sleepy Bloomington. You kind of always heard the same thing about playing at the Bryce Jordan Center. I had a conversation with my co-host, Kasheen Alexander, who was not able to join us today. But Kasheen has said the same thing about the Bryce Jordan Center. It's a tough place to play because it's empty. Nobody shows up to those games. And how about a 12 p.m. Central Time start on the first day of 2025? So, you know, not excusing the slow start, but Iowa recovered from it. They were down double figures early and, got it close through the second and third quarters, and then pulled away in the fourth. But, we've been critical of Taylor McCabe's defense at times, her one-dimensional offensive game. Obviously, she's got to be able to make threes to be effective. But I tell you, these last couple of games, or I should say two of the last three games, she's been 5 of 8 from three in 2 of the last 3 games. And again, these have been games where Lucy Olsen's offense has kind of been MIA in some regards. And so you need a spark off the bench when your best offensive player is struggling. Lucy struggled from 3. She's not a great three-point shooter, but you want better than 0 of 4 from the field, from 3 from your best player. And as I mentioned, Taylor McCabe, 17 points, 5 of 8 from 3, 3 assists, 2 steals, 0 turnovers. She was also perfect from the free throw line. So that's really positive. Iowa's second straight game where they've been in the green, so to speak, as it relates to turnovers. They were +3 today. The Hawkeyes finished with just 12 team turnovers to Penn State's 15. That's the second straight game, like I said, where they finished in the green. That's the good news. The bad news is they've played the 2 worst teams in the conference as it relates to turnovers. Penn State turns the ball over a whopping 21 times per game. Purdue averages 18 turnovers a game. Iowa just a couple notches below that mark at 16.4 turnovers per game. But these last 2 games, they've been better. We're really good against Iowa State as it relates to turnovers. And as I said to our good friend Kyle Spence earlier in the day, he texted me about the game. I said, hey, They're 2-0 in these last two games, survive and advance. They haven't been pretty. The other night, it was a night of runs. Both teams, Purdue and Iowa, going at one another. Iowa eventually pulled away, and you look at the score, you're like, wow, this is a blowout, 84-63, and that's how it'll look in March when the committee gets together. Of course, neither of those games are going to be resume-building wins. The Hawkeyes do have a chance at one, though, on Sunday against Maryland. A few other things that stood out today, certainly Gracie Merkel is a load down low. I was not particularly impressed with Iowa's ability to take advantage of her lack of athleticism, lack of quickness. There were times, I even tweeted about this during the game, where Hannah Stuelke's got the ball out in the three-point arc, and they're giving her absolutely no respect from three. And you just want her to be able to make that shot. And I had a conversation with Kashin preseason about Hannah Stuelke's NBA or WNBA potential down the road. She's going to have to develop a jump shot. We've seen her make threes, but the fact that she wasn't even willing to attempt a three today at the Bryce Jordan Center, they won without it. But that doesn't make me real confident in her confidence because, again, they were not giving her any respect from behind the arc. They were playing off of her, and Gracie Merkel would have had to have played off of her because Hannah Stuelke, a much better athlete, much quicker. Now, we did see an effective, efficient day from Addison O'Grady. She was 8 of 8 from the field. That's what they need from her. Ava Hayden is playing her best basketball. She's really coming into her own. And so those are the types of things, along with the production of Taylor McCabe, that is helping Iowa in the Big Ten here so far. They're 2-1 in this conference to this point, helping them to overcome sort of a lull from Lucy Olsen. And again, very timely. We're also seeing better production out of Tegan Mullaney. Taylor Strimlow didn't have her best day today, but the freshmen are coming on when it counts. Aaliyah Guyton also was 1 of 1. She hit yet another three-pointer. Still seeing struggles out of Kylie Feuerbach, 0 of 3 from 3. So Feuerbach and Lucy Olsen, part of that starting backcourt, they've got to shoot better than 0 of 7 from 3. And Penn State was giving up tons of open looks from Iowa in that first quarter, and Iowa just couldn't take advantage of it. Still don't love what I'm seeing from Sydney Falter's shooting stroke, but at the same time, she's starting to become that stat sheet stuffer that we saw in the latter half of last season. She finished with 7 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and just 1 turnover along with the steal. And so you can take 3 of 8 from the field and 1 of 3 from Sydney Falter. I wish she could become a better jump shooter. She's shown flashes of that. But again, consistency. This team has been inconsistent, to say the least. But you look at their record, they're 12-2. They're 2-1 in the conference. Yes, they've had opportunities lost. That game at Michigan State absolutely was winnable. And the other game against Tennessee, they were up late and lost that one. Iowa, I think, needs to do a better job of identifying skilled players on the offensive end, I should say on Iowa's defensive end, and figuring out a way to adjust during the game. Iowa's been much better as a team defensively this year, but they've seen some players go off. You think about Dennebeer at Drake. You think about Audie Crooks, both terrific players. We also saw a really good guard up at UNI who went off late in that fourth quarter and nearly carried UNI to a win in Carver. And today it was the story of Gabby Elliott, who went off for 12 of 22 from the field, 7 of 11 from 3, 32 points, 5 rebounds, no turnovers, a couple of steals for Elliott. She single-handedly kept them in the game. She was one of just 3 players in double figures. The other 2, Gracie Merkel, who I mentioned, and Jayla Oden off the bench, who finished 4 of 12 from the field with 10 points. They had no chance if Iowa had just slowed Gabby Elliott down a little bit, but they could not do that. So without breaking down the tape, going back and looking at this further, it's hard for me to say exactly, is this a result of just playing a lot of really solid individuals? I could say that for Audie Crooks and Dennebeer along with McDermott at UNI, but I think there is a trend there. At least to this point, it seems like there's a trend of Iowa allowing each opponent's star player to kind of go off. And that partly is a result of they don't really have that individual defender that you can rely on, especially a perimeter defender. I know Audie Crooks plays on the inside, but without Gabby Marshall there, we thought Kylie Feuerbach would be that, but I think she's struggling on the offensive end, and it might be hampering her defensive confidence as well. Maybe Taylor Strimlow can become that. They're better as a team defensively, but they don't have that individual that they can turn to for great effort every time down the court, even if it's just ball denial defense, which was a great trait of Gabby Marshall's. So Iowa ends up shooting on the day 53% from the field. That'll get it done. A lot of their work on the inside. They were just 7 of 21 from three, but not a terrible number. I mean, you can survive. This team can survive on 7 of 21. You need better production out of your guard, your starting guards, but they can survive there. 69% from the foul line. Penn State, on the other hand, held to 41% overall from the field, 27% from three, 67% from the free throw line. Again, Iowa was +3 as it relates to turnovers, so that's positive. And now this Sunday, Iowa plays Maryland. This is a Maryland team that has got some solid wins on the resume, but I do think this might be their toughest test to this point. Why do I say that? Well, they've won at Syracuse. Syracuse, I think, is hovering around 500 overall to this point. Had a good win against a ranked Duke team, but that game was at College Park. So this game, I'll tell you, this is a big game for both teams. Maryland will have an extra day or two off as it relates to rest and prep, but they'll be coming to Carver, and you know it'll be a raucous crowd on a late Sunday afternoon in Carver Hawkeye Arena. And Hawkeye fans who won't be in attendance are cheering because it's not on Big Ten Plus. It's on Big Ten Network, on BTN. So again, the final score on Sunday, Iowa 80, Penn State 68. And we plan to be back for live post-game coverage Sunday following a ranked matchup between the Hawkeyes and the Terps, which will commence at 5 p.m. Central Time and will be televised on the Big Ten Network. I appreciate you tuning in, folks. Just want to kind of give my reaction, my recap from today's affair over in State College. We'll talk to you this Sunday and more portal recruiting, all of that. We don't stop here, even during the football offseason, but men's and women's hoops still going strong here throughout the next few months. We'll talk to you soon.